Hey everybody, Ryan here from the Breaking Badge show. Thanks for tuning in with us this week. This week, Chad and I have a different style of guest to bring to you. Our guest this week is Glenn Topping. Glenn is retired from the Broward County Sheriff's Office. Now, a lot of the guests that we have had on the show have written some form of a fiction book. But since retiring from law enforcement, Glenn has become a non-fiction author. In our conversation, Glenn's going to share some amazing and crazy stories of the early days of his career. He's also going to talk about his inspiration to become a non-fiction author and share a little bit about the books he's written. We hope you enjoy the show. This is the Breaking Bad Show.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? Welcome back to the Breaking Bad Show. I'm Chad Bruckner.
I'm Ryan Chartrand.
And today we have an awesome guest on with you, Sergeant Glenn Topping. He's a retired law enforcement from the Broward County Sheriff's Office in Florida, Army veteran and author. Glenn, welcome to the show. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Welcome to the show, Glenn.
Thank you.
Glenn, tell us a little bit about yourself. Take us through your origins, where were you born, where were you raised, and take us through your adolescence.
Okay, well, I was born in Bloomington, Illinois, eventually moved to New York. I dragged my parents there. And I basically stayed there the rest of my adult life. When I was 18, I enlisted in the military, went into the military police. I got promoted to sergeant. I was stationed in Germany for about 4 years. When I got out of the military, I got security jobs here and there. I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do yet. And then a little bit later on, I got into law enforcement. I was with a small city down here called City of Dania. I was with them for about 4 years until they merged with the Broward County Sheriff's Office. And then about a year into that, I got promoted to sergeant. And then 25 years later, I retired.
When did you start writing books?
Probably right just before the pandemic. Because I'm working as a driving school instructor and test administrator right now. So, which is, I think, more dangerous than being a cop. But that aside, so I had this bug to write something a long time ago, and it all started back when I was working in this rock and roll club called the Agora Ballroom. But that was in probably the early '80s in South Florida. It was a nice rock and roll club, very famous. Although a lot of the up and coming rock and roll stars today started there, where they tested out all their music. And one night we had thrown out some people, and the boyfriends made some threats to come back and shoot up the place. And we've heard that numerous times in the past. So around 3:30 in the morning, this one closing night, I'm sitting in my car, give my friend a ride home, and I'm parked right at the front door to the club. There's about 10, 12 people standing around out front, and a car is coming behind us. And my friend looks and goes, "There's a car don't back up." That's okay. So I just happened to look over my shoulder, and it's sort of barrel of a rifle sticking out of the window, and the guy did a drive-by shooting. I guess it was true what he did. So he shot my windows out of my car while I was sitting in it. So I jumped out. I said, "Hey, get down, they're shooting." So everybody's yelling and screaming in the parking lot. Then the guy takes off out of the parking lot. I run over, I get up, and I see everybody getting up except this one kid. And I run over to him, and I see he took a bullet in the back. So I get on the ground with him, and I pull him up into my lap, and I put my finger in the bullet hole, hoping to do something about the bleeding. Obviously, it didn't do anything. Paramedics come, the police come. They take him to the hospital where he died. So that incident prompted me to maybe put this to a story. Because then it followed eventually, make a long story short, I know we have a lot of time. The guys that did it wound up getting arrested. They were out of state. They brought him back. One guy, it took them 3 trials to get convicted of murder. The other guy, 1 trial. They both get sent to prison in northern Florida. About 7 years later, one of the guys gets raped in prison, and he contracts AIDS. And the family pleads with the governor at the time if he can get home to die. So the governor pardoned him, and he went home. I guess he died. The other guy, about a year later, escapes in a laundry truck. and is on the run for over 10 years until the U.S. Marshals finally catch up to him.
Wow.
And he's back in prison, right? So that was basically the storyline of my book, which initially started out as a movie script, and then it followed all the craziness to sex, drugs, and rock and roll back in the club, because back in the '80s it was during the cocaine cowboy days.
I would love to hear it. Do you have a crazy, wild story about the club and I don't know, people sitting around doing blow and taking home hookers, or like I picture a movie like a Leo DiCaprio movie or something. I don't know.
It's funny you mentioned an actor, because Johnny Depp was working there at the club at the time. He was a guitar player with one of the house bands called the Kids. Right, that's where he became a good acquaintance of mine. But yeah, there was a lot of cocaine use. So it was mainly in the bathrooms. We get word that somebody was in the bathroom doing coke, and we would stand up on the toilet and look over the stall and see two guys in there doing it, or two girls, and then we'd get out of here, kick them out. We always had a cop at the door. They would take them and they'd be arrested for possession of cocaine. Yeah, the Quaaludes were a big issue back then. Also, people were high as a kite all the time, falling down drunk, getting hurt. It's crazy.
Wow. Are your books fiction or nonfiction?
Fiction.
Fiction. Are you? And everybody knows I love talking about family because that's just my personality. But do you have a family, or married, or divorced?
Yeah, I'm married.
Okay.
Well, I'm married for the second time. My wife I'm married with this one now for almost 26 years, and I have one son who's 24. But prior to that, I was married before that for 13 years. My wife died of cancer. So I did the stupid thing. I got remarried later on. And everything's good now. Yeah. So
was your late wife, was she when you were working the job, or?
Yeah, I met her in the club. She was the female bouncer of the group.
Oh, that's awesome.
She was a second-degree black belt in Aikido.
I don't want any trouble. No trouble. Wow.
Yeah, she was a tough little kid. Yeah.
Wow. What year did she pass away?
That was 1996.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what year did you meet your new wife, your current wife?
About a year and a half later.
Wow. How did you meet her?
When I was living, my neighbor next door said, listen, why don't you meet this girl? She works with me. She's a secretary in the office. And I go, I don't know if I want to meet anybody yet, blah, blah, blah. She goes, oh, come on. She's really nice. She's single. Okay. So I did. So I call her up, and the typical, well, I'm doing my hair. I don't know if I really can meet you tonight, which turned out to be not true. And I met her at a club down the street. We had a drink, talked, and it went from there.
That's all. How many dates before you realized you want to marry her?
It was probably within a 6-month period.
Ah, very nice. Very
nice. Because we stayed together a lot. We hung out a lot, did a lot of things. It was fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Now to think back, it's all these years later. It's like, wow, where'd the time go?
Yeah. So what do you occupy most of your time now? What are you doing?
Well, I'm working full time. We're working as a driving school instructor. Plus I'm also a private investigator. So if you get anything in between that I can do, I mainly do background checks because they're easy. Just computer checks really. So I don't have really a lot of time to do anything else.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Keeps me away from that honeydew list.
We all have one, that's for sure.
Yeah, some are bigger than others.
Yeah.
The incident at the club that influenced your book was
Yes.
were you already working as a police officer then, or was that before?
No, that was before. I got into policing in early '84. The shooting was in '82.
So how did that experience influence your decision to become a police officer and influence you as you started going through life?
Well, it really didn't influence me because I was influenced many, many years before that. I grew up, in the '60s, watching all the police shows, and I had a lot of cops living where I lived in New York at the time, and was talking to them, and I go, it's like a really cool job to have. So that's what basically started me on that mental idea of like, maybe I want to get into law enforcement, maybe. But then after the shooting, I go, well, this is crazy. I mean, somebody's got to find these guys and help put them where they belong. And that I was already working as a reserve officer with the city of Dania, and I was doing part-time policing with them. But at the club, it helped me make that final decision, I think. And then I went from reserve, I got hired on full-time.
Wow. And I know exactly what you mean by being influenced by the shows. I'm an '80s child, and when I was probably 4 years old, I would ride around on my Power Wheel pretending that I was in Chip's Patrol.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then even as I got older, it was Top Cops and Rescue 911. And I mean, from that young age, I knew what I was destined to do when I got older.
Well, I was on the original reality show Cops back in 1989.
No kidding.
Yeah, I was in like 6 episodes. They rode with me for about a week, and it was interesting.
Tell us about that experience, because that's I think any police officers have it. I mean, Cops has evolved so much, but I mean, I remember it from back in those days when it first started. What was that like?
Well, it was 1989 when the show started. At the time, my chief at the time with the sheriff's office calls me in his office, and there's this guy in a suit there, and I think, oh, what I do? And he goes, listen, we introduced you to this guy. He's the producer of this new TV show called Cops. And I go, what's that? He goes, well, they ride around with you and they film what you do during the shift. And I think you would be a good catch for the show because you're very aggressive on the street. So I go, okay, sounds like fun. So they rode with me. The camera guy sat in the front seat. The sound guy sat in the back seat. And we went on patrol, and where we got into, we got into.
What's the best thing that happened, or your best story or episode that made the air?
Well, the one that really sticks out the most was there was a family that shoplifted at one of the local grocery stores, and it was the parents and the 2 little kids, and they stole a bunch of meat. So we get the call, and we see the guys leaving. Now the cops crew is with me in the car, and we see the guy leaving the area, and we get behind him, but the guy doesn't want to stop. So now we're in a chase. Right? Now back then you could chase
all
anybody.
The best Cops episodes are chases, right?
Right. So we're chasing this guy, and as we're behind them, the kids are in the back seat. They rolled the window down, and they're throwing all the meat at me on my car.
How old are these kids?
They're like little kids, like 9, 10 years old.
Oh, sad.
And I think, what a waste of meat. So we're trying to catch them, and it's not a high-speed chase, but it's a chase. And we're getting hit with all the chickens and steaks and chops. And the camera guy thought it was the greatest thing in the world. So finally we get them stopped. We arrested the kids, we turned them over to somebody else. And that's what stuck out in my mind all these years. Now, kind of ironic is that after I wrote my script called The Hurt, which is one of the books it's based on, I called this guy up, who's the executive producer now of the TV show The Amazing Race. He was a camera guy back then on Cops. And I was asking him if he would maybe be interested in producing the script. And he goes, I'm really busy right now with the 30th anniversary of my show, and I'd love to do it, but I don't have the time. And then he goes, I always remember that meat case. Out of the hundreds and hundreds of shows, of the cop shows, he remembered that one case. I go, how do you remember that? He goes, well, it was the greatest thing in the world. I've never seen anything like since.
I mean, that's almost, I mean, you see in the reality of it, you feel bad for the children being in that situation and everything. But yeah, that is, you look back on, you figure that's over 30 years ago, and meat flying everywhere. You just
I mean, out of everything else that we did over the years, that one case, it's crazy.
So have you always had an interest or a desire in writing and to write?
No, it just happened like I said, many years later after that shooting at the club, I was thinking like this would make an interesting story to tell with the shooting and what happens in the club and what happens outside the club. So I waited many, many years later to work on the script. I found a script writer in California to help me through it. And it was many years later. I had other people that I used to see when I used to go to court. There was this one girl there that used to work in the club, and she worked in the clerk's office. She said, listen, Glenn, did you ever think about writing a script about this incident? I go, yeah, I'm thinking about it, but it was many, many years later until I decided, all right, let me try it. So I put it together. It was like 95 pages long, like, I don't know, almost 90,000 words. I sent it out to this guy in California to look at it. He goes, well, it's not in script format. Nobody's going to look at it. So we have to change it into script format, which we did. And we changed a little bit here and there. And then it became the script called The Hurt.
Wow. That is awesome.
But then when I met with that producer of The Amazing, where I talked to the guy from The Amazing Race, he goes, Why don't you have it transformed from script to book, and then book to movie? So I said, all right, I'll give it a shot. So I met this other lady in California. She helped me transform it from script to book, and I got the novel called The Hurt. But of course, it takes an act of God to find somebody to look at it and print it, and produce it, unless you know somebody.
It's all about who you know.
And I know Johnny Depp, but it's hard to get a hold of this guy.
He's been tied up in that trial for a while.
Yeah, I know. That's over now.
That trial, by the way. Oh my wife has been obsessed with it, which is
It's
weird.
a soap opera.
She doesn't watch anything ever on TV, but she's been glued to this thing. And I purposely have stayed away. But then when she's watching, I'll listen to it. And I'm thinking, like, is this real? Do people like when Amber Heard's talking about, fecal matter in the bed, and it's like, how embarrassing that's got.
It almost sounded very scripted.
Yeah. It's just too crazy to even believe it to be true.
No, that was a reality show.
Yes, it was.
Unfortunately,
Have you guys seen Top Gun Maverick yet?
No, I haven't seen it. I keep telling my son, let's go see it. He goes, not yet.
So I saw it on Friday. I actually took a half day, and since I'm the boss, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go watch a movie by myself. It was amazing. And I sat in that movie, probably my top 20 movies of all time. That's how good it is. I think Rotten Tomatoes is like a 98% rating. It's unbelievable.
Really?
I couldn't believe to be that heavily favored. Anyway, it's an amazing movie. But I sat there in that movie at 41 years old thinking, how many 12, 13, 14-year-olds are going to watch this and then become fighter pilots? That's how good the movie was. And it just glamorizes it being a Navy fighter pilot. Unbelievable. And so I'm listening to you tell that story about cops, and generation of kids watch that show and then wanted to become cops. It's just funny how media can influence you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Now, a lot of it's still Hollywood, but, unfortunately, what you see on TV is not real. The reality shows aren't real. They're all scripted, right? The police shows you watch on TV, not cops, but the other TV shows, they're not real. They're if they were really like that, it'd be nice, but they're not. So I think a lot of, even when I'm with a student in the car with the driving lesson, I'll say, what do you want to get into when you get out of here? Well, maybe thinking about law enforcement. I go, nah, go to the fire service. You'll be much better there. Right? Because they go, well, I saw this. I like that show, Criminal Minds or whatever they're watching. I go, it's not real. You got to get that through your head. Most police work is very boring. You could drive around for 8, 10, 12 hours and do nothing.
Yeah.
So when I was a very young police officer, there was someone whose car was parked at a local mall, and they came out to their car, and someone had dinged their car. It wasn't a big dent, wasn't a lot of damage, just a little paint scuff. And they wanted me to take a sample of the paint chip and then be able to match up the paint chip to what kind of car it came from, so that I could track down the person that scuffed their car. And I told them, I said, you've been watching too much Law and Order here.
Yeah.
An hour later, everybody's arrested, case is closed. Amazing.
Yeah, if only.
An hour.
Yeah, if only.
Glenn, what is, you worked law enforcement, you've been retired a long time. When you see everything going on now, what do you think? Like, what is that? You're comparing what you see in the media, even though you're not doing the job now, but you did it for many, many years. So you know what that job entails. But now you're almost in this hopeless position. While I'm retired, I can't really do anything. Like, what sort of emotions or feelings that calls for you?
It's hard when you hear the media. The media doesn't like the police, don't like the police. A lot of administrations, I think, are very two-faced about how they take care of their own people. They say one thing, and then the next day they talk about somebody else, something else. Until you walk in their shoes, you shouldn't say anything. Keep your mouth shut. Go do an 8-hour tour or a 10-hour tour with somebody in your agency in a busy area of town, and see what they have to go through. Because they're getting a raw deal. You see the anti-cop sentiment that's out there, the defund the police atmosphere. Everybody in the Democrats in Congress don't like the cops, except when it's around them, right? It's really horrible the way they're treated today. And I would tell everybody, forget about law enforcement. It's a necessary evil that we need today, but the way you get treated, no.
It's funny. I read an article yesterday from Michael Phelps, and it was actually an article with him and Simone Biles and somebody else from the the best Olympians we've ever had in the last 25 years. And they both were telling the stories when their kids want to get older, absolutely not going to be Olympic athletes, just absolutely not. So it's like funny. We watch them on TV. We celebrate them in the award ceremony and the medal ceremony and the jubilation. And it's all these amazing, amazing things. Yet these are people that have performed at the highest level. And they said when their kids are old enough, not only no, absolutely no. It's just interesting to me. And there's a lot of that going on with law enforcement. I think parents that are cops, just with everything going on, like, no, I don't want my kids to go into this. It's just not worth it, which is sad because we need good people.
Right. But you look at the backstory of some of these Olympic athletes that are at the top level, what they had to do and what they had to endure and deal with to get there. They had to keep their eyes closed to a lot of things that were happening.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that like every other job, right? If you want to keep advancing, keep making it, you have to play the game. I mean, unfortunately, you just have to play the game. And that means sometimes turning a blind eye to things. And it's unbelievable. I could never do that personally, but
I couldn't either.
Yeah. But then again, that's why we're not executives, right? We're not playing that game. And it's just sad that that's what you have to do to get there.
Nope. Yep. And that's the way it is today. You got to, it's a horrible way to do it. You want to get up the ladder, you got to keep, like I said, keep a blind eye, but you got to make your decision. You got to be able to live with your decisions. So.
You know what? That's a great segment for Ryan and I, because we talk about in the show all the time, accountability, personal ownership. We can complain all day about what should be or how it should be or why it's not that way. But at the end of the day, we have so much more control and authority over our lives and careers than we think we do. And it starts with owning everything that happens to us. And, looking in the mirror is that one thing for me. When I left law enforcement, I said, and these are questions I asked myself in my head, can I look myself in the mirror and be proud of myself? That was my barometer. And there were some things I'm like, no, I can't. Okay, well, then I'm not doing that. And so just naturally, I started to explore and evolve and get to the point where I'm like, all right, well, the way I'm going to look at my mirror and be most proud of myself is if I leave this profession that I love and do something different. Tough decision, but I mean, it was in line with my values. So I like how you said that. You have to be able to look in the mirror and be proud of yourself.
Yeah. And I had no problem looking in the mirror because I know what I did was right. Even my boss used to call me the go-to guy. You go see Sergeant Topping. He'll know what to do. Leave me alone. The first line supervisor takes the brunt of everything. And I told it like it is. I followed the rules, played by the rules, followed the law. Didn't have any problems with anybody. I had a few internal affairs incidents, but that's normal, right? And I always took care of my guys, and they knew it. They came first. And they stepped out of line, they heard about it. If they did a great job, they got a nice commendation. That's all. It was that easy. It became very easy for me.
Because you're a good person.
Well, I was a hostage negotiator on SWAT for 13 years, and I learned a lot.
Glenn, what do you have coming up that you're really excited about? Do you have any more books on tap?
Well, my wife is on my butt about writing books because she goes, you're spending all this money and nobody's buying them. I said, yeah, they're buying them. They're not bestsellers, but people are buying them, right? Well, the one I'm working on now, it's taken me a while to do it because it's just trying to keep the storylines going. It's kind of in line with what you hear today about all the shootings, all the school shootings. That this one kid, grew up in an atmosphere at home where he was bullied by his friends and family, and he decided to take it out on the world. And he's working his way up the ladder. His goal is to become the most prolific school shooter in history. Wow. And that's what it's going to build up to. But it's not easy writing because I kind of incorporate what's going on in today's world in the storyline.
Do you ever worry about writing material? And I'm legitimately just asking this question because I don't know what that's like. Because I've written one book and it's nonfiction. It's more like a manual, but and it's nothing great. Don't get me wrong. But is it hard to write content like that with everything going on? Is it so close? Is it so visceral? Or in your eyes, it's something that has to be done, and even if it's going to cause a lot of reactions in people?
Well, I think it's something that needs to be said and not hidden. And it's got to be something that keeps the reader reading and want to read more and not put it down. Everything that would be in the book is obviously a lot of it is made up, but there's a lot of truth in it. And I never mentioned anything like the name of a school that was hit or the town that it was in, or if anything, it would be a fictitious town. So I don't bring up any bad emotions from anybody if, in fact, they read the book. So I don't put anybody's personal name, and everybody's name is different. Everything's different, except the incident is the same.
What specific? Are you modeling it after a specific school shooting that happened?
Not really after any. Just a combination of a lot of different schools. I mean, the Parkland shooting down here, which is only, from where I'm sitting now in the city of Deerfield Beach, is only 15 minutes away. Who would ever think it happens in your backyard? But I was there that day when it happened. I wasn't working with the police, but I was there in that area that day when it happened. And it's like, wow, right here, like, look at all these cops, look at all the SWAT teams, look at all the everything. It was a mess. So yeah, so it's, I try to incorporate what's happening, try to keep it up to date. Yeah.
What led you to, in that specific topic, what led you to have to influence you to write on that topic?
I think just watching what was going on. Say every other day was a mass shooting somewhere. Unfortunately, at the schools, right? I mean, it's always bad when it's a high school, let alone an elementary school, right? And I thought, well, this might be my next genre. Who knows? And I just started typing away, and it started to evolve. And I go, sounds interesting. Sounds pretty good. Okay, let me continue it. And then like a week later, another shooting. Oh, let me read about this one. Then I build that one into the storyline. So that's how it's progressed.
Wow. And so now you have, correct me if I'm wrong, you have 3 books that are out already?
4.
4 books. Okay, so you're working on your 5th?
Yes.
And you've written, and you started writing your first book right before the pandemic?
Yes.
Wow, that's an impressive writing timeline. So tell us a little bit about your other books.
Okay, well, the first one was easy because I lived it. That was the true crime drama called The Hurt. And then I did a sequel to that one called The Real Story Behind the Hurt and the Rise and Fall of Extremists. And that takes place 25 years after The Hurt closes down. Then the other one is called Operation 1600, which is a political thriller about a corrupt U.S. president that gets into a war with Russia. And of course, it's nuclear. And then, there's mass destruction between U.S. and Russia and other countries. They get involved. Kind of goes off the board, off the wall. The other one is called Look a Quarter. It's a autobiographical anecdotes of my crazy life.
Wow, that is awesome.
That one is a little more risque.
So out of all your books you've written so far, which one's your favorite?
My first one, The Hurt.
Or I should say, which one are you most proud of?
My first one.
First one.
Because I think it came out really well. Originally it was a script, then it became the book. And when I get people that I used to work with back in the day buy it, they go, I remember that day. And I think it's good because I was hoping you would. Okay, so that'd be my best one.
Oh, that's great. So, and where for our listeners that want to look into it, where can we find your books?
They're online on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You can get it on Kindle or Nook, or you can get on with the publishing company called exlibris.com, and you can get it through there.
Okay, awesome. And do you have a website or anything that our listeners can go and check you out or learn about you there?
No, unfortunately, I don't have a website.
Okay. All right.
I like it. You're rebelling, Glenn. You are rebelling.
I'm canceling myself.
We really appreciate you coming on the show and having a chat with us and everything and getting to share about your books. Before we wrap up, Chad is going to throw at you 5 questions that we do with our guests, if you're ready.
Ready?
Thank you for the intro, Ryan. I appreciate that. To start doing this for future episodes. I like that. All right, Glenn, 5 questions, rapid fire. These aren't hard or tricky, but we like to know who you are as a person. So if you have a cool story that goes with your answer, feel free to share. You ready to go? Okay. Favorite food?
Chinese.
You have a favorite dish?
Egg foo young.
Yeah, that's good. Favorite movie? You love movies.
Oh boy, movies. The Negotiator.
Ooh, that is a good one. I just saw that again recently. The year since I saw it. Who's your favorite actor?
Robert De Niro.
Okay, oh, nice. Here's a fun one. First celebrity crush.
Oh boy. I really don't have any crushes on celebrities.
Really? You're like 12, 13-year-old Glenn Topping didn't have a, actress or singer that you thought was attractive?
Oh boy. I really can't think of one.
Ooh, okay. All right. We'll skip that one. Current go-to song on your playlist. What's a song right now that, Glenn, you're playing? You're like, I really love this song. Or singer,
oh boy.
Or
God, so many songs. Was that to be one song, but it can be a group?
Group. You can give me a group. Yep.
Yeah, I like Queen.
Oh yeah. Did you see the movie?
Bohemian Rhapsody? Great song.
Did you see the movie?
Yes, I saw it numerous times.
Unbelievable movie. Yeah. All right, last question, and you're doing awesome. Summer morning. Summer, let's say July 3rd, July 2nd. You're off, nothing to do. Your wife, nothing to do. Where will we find you guys, and what are you doing?
It's funny you mentioned that date, because on July 2nd, we'll be at my mountain house in North Carolina in the mountains.
Nice. There you go. What are you doing?
So my head is there, but my body's in Florida.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Glenn, thank you so much. 5 questions. Appreciate you.
Thanks very much, guys. I appreciate it. It was fun.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much for taking the time to come on with us, Glenn. It was an awesome conversation.
Yes,
Everyone,
thank you.
if you enjoyed Glenn's show and our interview with Glenn, make sure you share the episode with a friend. Make sure you subscribed on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the show and follow us on iTunes. And give us a like, give us a review, and we'll see you all next time.
Okay, gentlemen, thanks again for having me. It was great.
Thanks,
Glenn.
Thank you.